Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today for sketches for 6x6 paper pads week 5. This is my layout based on the sketch. So there are 2 square photos and then I am using a house, but the idea is that you actually use a 6x6 paper pad to create a square that is like a quilted square. You'll see I'm going to do the quilted square, but I'm turning it into a house. So it's a square with a big diagonal rectangle at the bottom left, and then 2 of the smaller rectangles that make up the big rectangle. It's kind of like tangram at the right hand side, the top right. So I am using this collection. It's called One of a Kind from My Mind's Eye. This is from, I picked it up at Tuesday morning. So it came with the chipboard, the ephemera, the stickers, and the it's not actually 6x8 paper pad, I think, and then the stamps. And I am using also a piece of patterned paper that is, I want to say, Simple Stories. It's a Halloween line, and I'm using that just as the background. I do try it on white, moving it on white, but it needs that black because of the contrast in the photo of the drink. So I am working on a square palette of white pattern paper just to get the sizing right, because I know that that's going to go on that house. So the house is a digital die cut. It's actually from Paige Evans, and I removed the insides so that I just had what I wanted. So the sketch does not actually call for the house, it just calls for the square. But this is about a Quarantini. So we have a, you know what, let me get to the drink and let me get to the hand stitching. So I'm going to hand stitch the outer border of each of these triangles. So I'm using my Tim Holtz ruler that it already has holes in it, and I'm going about 1/4 inch up, and you can see how I just have my paper piercer and I'm pivoting around the corners to get everything perfectly lined up, and then that way I don't have to worry about lining up those corners. So I'm going to repeat the same on all 3 of the triangles, which I will skip, and now I'm going to the actual hand stitching. So stitching floss, DMC floss is what I use, comes with 6 threads. I find that that is way too thick, and so I separate it out and I use 4 threads. You can also use the 2 if you double it and tie a knot at the end. This way you just tie a knot at the end and you have that tail that you move as you sew. So I'm going to thread the needle, and I've got a knot tied at the far end. There you go. And I like to hold that tail when I'm getting started. And then you just go up, down, up, down, up, down. That was very descriptive, wasn't it? Up, down, up, down, up, down. So you want to go one away and then go back down. So you're kind of sewing over yourself, and repeat that all of the way around. And I anchor my threads with, you can either use purple tape from Thermo Web, or I use artist tape. Just because it's a whole lot cheaper than my Thermo Web, and you don't see it. And I want it to be actually more permanent than the temporary Thermo Web. So I have done all of my stitching, and now it's time to build a house. So I'm going to use, this is new, this is a pen, an Ultra Bond pen from Thermo Web, and so I'm going to use that liquid adhesive on these really teeny tiny spots to adhere down the frame of the house, and then put in those stitched triangles to finish off what on the sketch is the square. So just the square, the body of the house is what I have turned into the house of the sketch. Or the square, hold on, that made no sense. The square of the sketch I turned into a house. So I am using double-sided tape. When you hand stitch on your paper, it adds some added depth, especially if you use 4 strands. And so I like this double-sided tape because it has a really nice strong bond to it to hold everything down. So I actually, as I was doing my editing for this video, I really actually liked just that. But I have colors, and I like that piece of floral pattern paper up the top because it ties all of the colors into the layout. So I have to tell you that I actually don't love this layout. It bothers me. There's a couple of things that bother me. One, the title leaves a gap between the title and the photo, and that does not exist in the sketch. So the title on the sketch is actually down by the photos, but I felt like I had too much white space the way that I laid out my layout if I did that. So I modified the sketch. So I don't like that. I also don't like the proportions of this are way off to me. I feel even if I hadn't done a house, that the layout tips to the right, that everything is dominant on the right. And maybe if I had left that dark picture of the drink, which I'll explain to you in a minute, on the outside, it may have provided a little bit more balance, but I felt that putting the picture where it is on the inside actually helped soften the picture because it was sitting on the color and not this thing standing out on the left-hand side. I should have gone with what I just did, with that journaling tag over there on the left-hand side built into the photos, and then Quarantini. There's just, I don't know. If I'd had it to do over again, I'm not sure that I would have done this. I might have maybe had used different photos and that way used 4 photos going up the side. There's just not a lot of balance on this page. I think that's what bothers me. So I have some leftover butterflies from a Pink Fresh Studio layout that I did, and so I want to incorporate those for a little bit of embellishment to the page. I also have these stamps from Catherine Pooler. They are new, and I have the new inks, and I want to use those as, I really liked the sentiment. So I wanted to use the clouds up above, and one of the sentiments that I'm going to use, it says, "Let's weather it together." And I thought it was perfect for quarantine and being home. So this photo is from May of last year, the end of May. So we had been in quarantine, we had been under stay-at-home orders for what, April, May, 2 months at that point, and things were starting to do a lot more takeout. And one of the Italian restaurants that we go to, Mama Cucina's, offered, if you look at the name on the cup, it says Mama's Quarantini. So they're martinis that they had renamed Quarantini, and that is what these drinks that we are drinking are, and they are potent. Holy moly. So I think this one particular glass was supposed to be for 2 people, and we actually got 4 drinks out of it because we ended up having to dilute it because it knocked me off my feet that first night. So these are the Catherine Pooler stamps. And there are coordinating dies that come with them. I have put them together in my storage sleeve. I have used one of her new inks, whose name I cannot off the top of my head remember. That's the lighter blue cloud, and then the darker blue is actually a distress ink. I wanted shades of that same blue that match with the blue in the patterned paper. So I'm going to raise one of these photos up using my thermo web foam just for a little bit of dimension. And what's perfect about this isn't even I think it's like a 16th inch. So it's a little bit less than a regular foam, which is 16 inches. So this is less than that, but it's just enough depth to just give you that little bit of variety. It's less than the chipboard. So that is a label from Coco Daisy from forever ago. I'm telling you, I'm doing some serious stash bashing with my Tuesday morning stuff and just using up stuff. So I want to back this butterfly with pink. The pink that's there, I want it to be subtle because I've got that stark contrast already in the photo, and then the red to go with the red of the Quarantini. So I had thought that I would trace it and then cut it and then layer it, but I decided, I'm going to do this the lazy way, and I'm going to glue them down with my liquid adhesive and just slide in under the edge and fussy cut that out. It truly is the lazy way. You could accidentally cut it, but you kind of see how you have to kind of fold the paper as you're moving your scissors around. And so you really want to ideally do this when the glue is wet and still sort of malleable. And so that is, ideally I would have cut one out as a background with my silhouette when I cut the butterflies out themselves. But as I said, these are remnants in my remnant box that I have. I have like little greenery bits and flowers and hearts and all sorts of random things left over from layouts that I didn't use that I can just, it's kind of like a stash of go-to bits and pieces for fillers and that kind of thing. So these are fillers, and I like the way that they create a diagonal along the same diagonal of that quilted block in the house. But what I don't like is you're going to see there's a gap between the butterfly and Quarantini in the title and the photos. I'm going to close out part of that gap with a piece of chipboard, which makes it nice. But there's still that space in there that kind of irks me. So right there, you can see between the title, the blue, and the photo of Michael and I. But it is what it is. So liquid adhesive to get into all of the tight spots with the fine metal tip. And I'm going to put that down, and I don't put it on the diagonal, which is how I had it originally. I think I had the photos up high, a little higher, and that might have made things better, but I'm really not sure. I once again do not have a visual triangle. Again, I'm working with the sketch, and in the sketch, Allison she does have the photos stacked at more of a sharper angle, and then she only has 2 clusters of flowers. I do actually have 3 clusters of flowers, but you don't see them because of the busyness of the page. You just sort of, you swirl around in the title and the photos and the journaling and the title and the photos and the journaling, and there's, but it's done. And I like the topic, I like the color. There's something about it that just doesn't sit well with me. Anyway, so chipboard pieces, I'm going to create my cluster of flowers there. You can see how I cut off that gap between the house and the photo of Michael and myself, and that actually makes me happier, and still doesn't quite do the trick, but it is what it is. And then just filling in some of the bits and pieces to give a little bit more visual interest to the page, although I'm really thinking I don't need it. I really wanted that black awesome in there because it's a dominant black that I felt provided contrast to the photo, but I couldn't find a way to get it in there. So instead of using the dots for the eyes, I've got this little pen stamp from way back when, and I used that as the flowers because they're similar flowers to the flowers in the pattern paper to dot the eyes. In the sketch where I'm putting these banners is actually where the title is, but there was no way Quarantini was going to fit in there unless I used smaller letters. I also felt like I just needed something up that top part of the page there to create a little bit more balance. So this is that sentiment that comes with the clouds. Let's weather it together, which I thought was perfect for stay at home. Good old COVID. It's kind of nice to be scrapping these memories now as things are starting to go back to normal. So you can have a different perspective on it, because I think it was all pretty horrible at the time, right? Getting adjusted to all of that. So the close-ups are coming. Thanks for stopping in today. I hope you have enjoyed this process video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the box down below. We'll see you again soon, hopefully. Take care.